This messy hair bearded man from Wimbledon in the UK is not an average dude who gets drunk at the pubs. Well, before 2005 he was, but now he's the best connected foreigner in China. This is Daniel Foa, Xi Jinping's nephew-in-law, and using that connection, he is now at the center of a EU-China tech war. All the while, Xi's family has made millions of dollars using Xi Jinping's power. We'll do an update for the mystery pneumonia tomorrow. Welcome to China Insider, I'm David Zhang. Before we start today's video, just wanted to mention Rakuten. If you haven't been hearing about this beautiful app, if you're shopping for the holiday gifts or buying for Cyber Week right now, you need to have Rakuten installed in your browser. It gives you insane amount of cash back. I actually got $96 back when I bought an espresso machine last year, and you can even attach it to your physical credit card and enjoy cash back too. Right now, there's 10% cash back for Macy's, 12% for Nike, and if you're in the US and don't have Rakuten yet, you're missing out. I have a referral link in the description. When you spend $40, you get $40 in cash back. Hurry, that offer ends on Thursday this week. All right, let's do a deep dive on Xi Jinping's family fortune, and it's all centering around this man, Daniel Foa. Foa married Hu Ying, who is the second niece of Xi Jinping. Now, Ying and Daniel met around early 2000s when Daniel was in China. The Telegraph profiles him as, quote, the same guy that used to hang out at dingy expat bars in Beijing now entertains CEOs and world leaders at the Great Hall of the People in Tiananmen Square. Sure, not any foreigner or even Chinese person can be seen hosting business leaders at the Communist Party political palace in Beijing. And now, an American EV company, Fisker, is the latest to use his connection to make it into the China market. Who would have guessed that Xi Jinping, with all his demonstration towards so-called China dreams, China modernization, all things with Chinese characteristics, would have a British nephew-in-law? Hypocrites! Well, actually, Xi Jinping's family, like all other CCP officials, have made millions of dollars from their connections and power. In 2012, Mike Forsyth and his team at Bloomberg at the time exposed Xi Jinping's fortunes, which of course led to the paper to be banned in China for a while. So where do we even begin with this story? Let's directly focus on Daniel Foa first. In China, his nickname is Big Ox. In 2007, Foa and Ying at this point married. Of course, that's again the niece of Xi Jinping. They started 3 companies in Beijing. The first one is called 51Give, a charity that does loans, also known as P2P loaning. Now, that later became a massive social implosion as P2P lending was basically leading to many to go bankrupt and losing their life savings. So that ended really badly. The second company is called 51Sim, which stands for 51 Sustainable Innovation Movement. The 51 in Chinese word is for 我要, or I want. So that's 51Give, which is I want to give, and 51Sim is I want to lead sustainable innovation. So you already know where this is going. The couple, they've been profiting from so-called green energy and renewable energy since the early 2000s. Yep, like those guys that fly to Davos on their private jet to talk about how to do better in ESG, Xi Jinping's niece became involved in that. The third company they had founded together is called Fair Climate Capital, again, focusing on climate change. Basically, Foa and Ying used each of these companies to create part of their persona. 51Give lets them to be gracious loaners to small businesses, appearing as philanthropists and raising money under that banner. 51Sim allows them to connect with the likes of the Clinton Foundation, the UN, and the so-called green peacemakers, focusing on green initiatives. And Fair Climate Capital, of course, makes it seem like the couple's doing sorts of, I guess you would say, proper investments into green initiatives. And of course, they take a high profile when highlighting their philanthropic work and of course the charity work involved, but they rarely ever acknowledge publicly that, the Chinese leader is their uncle. And from 2007 onward, they were heavily involved with public speaking at different green events, including joining actor Edward Norton and Virgin Chair Richard Branson at some retreat in the Maldives. And then with 51Sim in 2012, winning $2 million from the Clinton Foundation to host their green car show. Now, in 2015, they worked for the Clinton Foundation under a certain unknown role, which I couldn't really find, but somehow their names rarely appeared publicly from 2013 onwards. Now, occasionally Daniel Foa makes the mention, which that's sort of where we have to base a lot of the information. So Daniel Foa became a board member at a Hong Kong-based medical holding company called Golden Meditech Holdings Limited in 2015. Now, we did some digging. Golden Meditech Holding is the biggest player in China's trillion-dollar medical insurance business. Not only that, Foa, despite being an independent, non-executive director, he might be the most valuable asset in that company. In 2019, Foa was appointed as a member and the chairman of the Remuneration Committee and the member of the Audit Committee and the Nomination Committee in that company. So he took on further roles, which I assume gives him more direct control over the company. Golden Meditech went on to partner with Houston-based Anderson MD, which is a very cutting-edge cancer research institute. And they did together cellular therapy in a new company called Celincos. And in 2015, they also bought out an umbilical cord blood cell research business in China. On their website, they partnered with prison hospitals in Beijing as well as maternity hospitals. And their website was accessible in 2022, but not today. Now, according to the Center for European Policy Analysis, CEPA, China and the European Union, they're engaged in a trade war over high-tech. And a big focus of that is the electric vehicle business. Next month, EU leader Ursula von der Leyen and Charles Michel are set to visit Beijing. And CEPA says expectations are already so low that one hesitates to depress them further. But one example of the intractable problem von der Leyen has been complaining about is the Chinese state's high-level encouragement of a glut of cheap electrical vehicles. Now, CEPA further reveals that the EU has singled out electric vehicles for a probe into unfair subsidies. Von der Leyen said in her speech recently, quote, "There is clearly overcapacity in China, and this overcapacity will be exported, especially if overcapacity is driven by direct and indirect subsidies." And that's where the Chinese EV industry is today. There's an overproduction of multiple different EV company startups in China and those that are wanting to come to China. And that's where Fisker and Xi Jinping comes in. First, let's talk about Xi Jinping. Well, I don't think Xi personally cares about millions of dollars, as he literally is the dictator controlling China. His family does, and they have been. However, what is really strange is Xi Jinping's obsession with pushing the Chinese EV industry. It's become a competitive aspect of the tech war between the US and China, and clearly, like all other aspects of exports from China, they flood the market with cheaper electric cars to try to win the competition by sheer lower prices compared to their competitors. Now, that price is, of course, subsidized back home in China. At the same time, they also encourage EV makers to set up shop in China because it's cheaper and they can get benefits. Well, prior to this, we might think that, oh, it's just a political move. Purely, it's used against the United States and Europe, right? It's a trade war. Now it seems like they're also making a buck on the side. That's where the recent news about Fisker comes in. Now, Fisker was defeated by Tesla in market shares here at home, but its first bankruptcy came in 2014, so its EV cars and assets were sold to Wanxiang, a Chinese company. Fisker retained its trademarks and names and then went on to form Fisker Inc., which is, I guess, the second iteration. But in 2021, Fisker signed a deal with Chinese EV battery maker CATL. And guess who facilitated that deal? Well, it's Daniel Foa, who at the time had served as the senior advisor to Fisker. So that means Daniel is the middleman to make it happen. Now, Daniel had already shown interest in EV, given it's part of that green energy business that he's been involved in for a very long time, and Fisker is heavily into meeting corporate ESG goals, so it's a perfect match. The question is, how could Daniel have helped? Well, it turns out CATL, or Ningde, is a Fujian-based company in China. It currently has about 37% of the global market share in EV battery production, and guess who helped push CATL to where it is today? And that's right, Xi Jinping. When Xi Jinping was the party boss of Fujian, that's when those personal connections with the founder of CATL came into play. In other words, it was just a piece of cake for Daniel, the nephew-in-law of Xi Jinping, to simply make a call to CATL and get the deal done. Now, fast forward to this year, Fisker announced that it would be opening a China center in December this year or early next year, competing against Tesla in the same Shanghai development space. And Xi Jinping needed to be cautious of solely relying on Elon Musk, who at times is quite ambiguous towards Taiwan and China, sort of not declaring allegiance or loyalty to either. And just like the EU, would like to de-risk just a little bit from somebody that they think they can trust or not trust. And that's where Daniel Foa comes in again. Daniel Foa now serves on Fisker's China board, pictured here sitting next to the Fisker founder, Henrik Fisker, in a meeting in Shanghai. Typically, projects of this kind in China depends on permits, subsidies, favorable tax conditions set by local Communist Party officials, and of course that's on orders from the top. Or in this case, one phone call away from the nation's top nephew-in-law. Ironically, one foreigner is able to do with one phone call what hundreds of millions of Chinese people would never even dream of doing. Foa says, quote, there's been a rapid shift to electrification, both from government policies and consumer behavior. This presents a massive opportunity for Fisker in China. And that tells us that Xi Jinping's family has this electrical business locked down. And of course, they're encouraging more and more EV shops to set up their next factory here in Beijing or in Shanghai. Next, it could be Lucid, it could be somebody else, who knows. Anyways, so that once they bind cattle, which is of course the most crucial part of the EV car, right, the battery. So if you come to China, you have to take partnership with cattle. Well, then they can basically export set products to wash away competition globally. And Daniel is the man you go to. He's the China hand. If you want to do business in China with the Xi family, of course, you have to go through him. Or he's the best way. Making banks and damaging EV markets, win-win scenario for China. Now, you might be thinking that isn't this sort of, hypocritical for a communist country to have their own family profiting off of power? Well, that's exactly what a communist country does in reality. The elite CCP officials get paid millions of dollars, meanwhile people starve. Sure, communism is great. Xi Jinping, after he became general secretary in 2012, did go to limit his family's exposure in the financial industry, forcing his brother-in-law, the father of Hu Eng, to give up his postcom and other ventures. And as Xi launched the anti-corruption campaign to struggle against his opposition factions in 2012, he of course had to make sure that his family weren't doing the very thing that he's trying to eliminate. And of course that's because of political reasons, not actually that he cares about corruption. But don't let that fool you. It didn't stop much. In that same year, Xi's family had been exposed to have millions in fortunes. According to Bloomberg, as Xi climbed the Communist Party ranks, his extended family expanded their business interests to include minerals, real estate, and mobile phone equipment. Postcom fits into that part. Now, those interests include investments in companies with total assets of about $376 million, an 18% indirect stake in a rare earth company with $1.73 billion in assets, and a $20.2 million holding in a publicly traded technology company, just to name a few. The figures don't account for liabilities and thus don't reflect the family's net worth. Now, neither Xi Jinping or his wife are found directly tied to the money, and that's a given. The Xi family has also had multiple luxury residences around the world, including a hillside villa overlooking the South China Sea in Hong Kong, with an estimated value for about $31.5 million US, and the family owns at least 6 other Hong Kong properties with a combined estimated value for about $24.1 million US. Xi Mingze, the daughter of Xi Jinping, I found her Manhattan residence based on the photos posted to one Twitter account, who I still believe belongs to her, and that's also a few tens of 20s, 30s millions of dollars in that mansion as well. Now, in fact, how Daniel Foa and Hui Ying even got to launch these companies back in 2007 was directly helped from her rich dad, who got richer because of Xi Jinping. 51Give is a loan-giving company. Where would she get the money from to start that? And 51Sim was apparently a collective startup with companies in partnership with Postcom. Again, it's his own dad's company, or her dad's company, and the Austrian embassy for some reason, and Camco. And according to Internet Archive, the last accessible time for me, at least, for 51give.com is April 14th, 2018. After that, as well as the current version of the website, are both inaccessible. 51Give stopped updating its Facebook since early 2021 and had done donations for COVID in China. 51Sim, on the other hand, however, is very suspicious. The last accessible version, according to Internet Archive, is in 2012, May 22nd. Now the website is also not accessible. No idea what happened to them. Now, strangely, in 2015, a Chinese tech entrepreneur named Yi Li started a company called 51 World. One of their products today is called 51Sim as well. Same name, but they do automatic driving simulations. I'm not sure if these two companies are the same ones or if Daniel Foa is behind it. We can't really find anything tracing it back to her, Hui Ying, or Daniel. And even if they are related, it's definitely made sure to hide the footprints leading to the couple on their company profiles. Now, according to The Telegraph, Daniel and Hugh, they, in 2012 at least, lived in a residential suburb of Beijing, and they had one child at the time. Obviously, this isn't the end of the story. We'll probably find more stuff. Who knows? Maybe it will be insane. Meditech holding is also a key part of this, or golden Meditech holding. So I'll keep you updated if something shocking comes out. But that's it today for the episode on China's most connected foreigner, Daniel Foa, and his connection to the Xi family, and how they made millions of dollars while in power. All right, I'm David Zhang. This is China Insider. If you enjoy the content, leave a like, comment below your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel today. Until next time, bye-bye.